we decided to paint him to bring more attention to the incarceration in the prison industrial complex, and how, New York is the only state besides North Carolina that incarcerates kids as young as 16 in adult prisons. Some of them not even being charged with a crime. And the fact that he was never really charged officially with a crime, and they kept putting it off, and he was stuck with his integrity and said, I did not commit this, and they kept offering him, you can get out, but he didn't want to do that, to become, stained with that crime that he didn't commit. And I have a lot of respect for that, and I feel like he was a really honorable person that I never had the pleasure of meeting, but his story spoke to me so strongly. Solitary confinement is a horrible, horrible thing to do to anybody of any age, but to do that to a child is unthinkable. I can't even imagine what he went through being in solitary for 2 years, and the fact that they would not even feed him sometimes, and that he was getting beat up and abused by the guards and other inmates and stuff. It's just like a horrible, horrible story. No one should have to go through that. And I wanted to bring attention with my art. I just want to bring attention to this in any way, in my small way, which is very small, but it's at least something to do. So thank you so much for being here.
Hello everybody, my name is Hiim. Kalief was one of 7, he was the youngest. My brother was the typical kid. He liked playing video games. He tried to play sports. He had a mouth, couldn't fight, but like I said, he was a typical kid. Until this thing happened to him. He went in as a boy and came out, I wouldn't even say really as a man, he came out crazy. But after a while, he started to get back in the gist of things, and then he started to show himself as being a man. One of the main things that upset me is, and I hope that it will never happen again, my brother was arrested for something he did not do. They had no evidence whatsoever. He had, I hope nobody's one of them, he had a legal aid for his attorney, and a lot of times they don't do their job, they just look at you as a number, sometimes they don't even know your name. The courts just kept on pushing his dates back, and the so-called person that he committed the crime with wasn't even in the country. My brother was basically tortured while he was inside. They stopped him from eating. He was given money to put in his account. They took his money. He was beaten, not only by the inmates, he was beaten by the correction officers. And the thing was, if he opened up his mouth, he'll get beat again. So, my brother went through a lot. Unfortunately, he saw one particular way out. I don't agree with the way that he chose, but at least now, doesn't have any more pain. My brother thought that nobody cared about him. He thought that when he left, nobody would care. And I'm just so happy that a lot of people are showing interest, they're fighting. My brother is actually changing things. The artist, she said that this was small. This is not small. This is really big. Do not think that it's small. I love the fact of what you did. My mother loves it. My brothers, my sister love it. I'm so happy you took the interest of thinking about my brother and doing something on his behalf. And I hope that this will never happen again.
Dion.
Hiim.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's upsetting to understand what happened to my brother, and God forbid it ever happens to anyone again. However, I do know, I do know that Raheem's right. My brother, he didn't feel like anyone cared, only because realistically, when you're in jail, it does take a toll on you, and unfortunately, the way they treated him shouldn't have to happen to anyone. And unfortunately, it happens all the time, too often. And just the things that we know from what happened to Kalief, I actually worked on records as an engineer, and during the time of his incarceration. And so for the year and a half that I stayed there, I couldn't even take just going there, hiding from Kalief, because I'd have to not acknowledge that my brother is in jail, or else it was contradictory to my job. But then I would go and visit him, and all the stories that he would tell me is not what you guys hear at all on the news. But to be public about it or to complain about it, I would put in complaints for him. Like I didn't understand why they would take away visits or shut down visits for anybody to come and see him. So meanwhile, I'm working there, I know there was nothing actually happening. So I just couldn't take it. But then at the same time, his story isn't just relative to him. He is one of many that maybe a brother or sister, God forbid anybody in here, or a family member who's either lost their life while inside or is still inside right now. It's unfortunate, and it just takes caring people like you guys. Really, it does take caring people to speak up against the correctional facility. I mean, Department of Education, Department of Corrections doesn't care. We're just cattle to them. We're a number that generates money for them, and we should not stand up for it as citizens of this country, of this city, of this city. We should not stand up for the things that they do just because they're not seen or heard. There's a lot of incidents that actually happen in New York. A lot of incidents that we hear of, and it's another story. But let's see if anyone here works for news reporting agencies, try to turn things around, because you don't hear about it. You just hear about the initial arrest. And then after the initial arrest, you're like, oh, it's another poor black male who got locked up. Or maybe not just a poor black male, just someone who got locked up, and then their guilt is already determined. So then no one cares. And the Department of Corrections thinks that they can just get away with whatever they do. And it's not fair. Not only does it happen to it doesn't happen to only blacks, Hispanics, or whites, or whatever. It happens to our brothers, our sisters. We're not just genderizing them or racializing them. They're our brothers and sisters, our family members. So where's the love that's shown or cared or put into when your brothers get locked up, your family members get locked up? Where's the love that's shown? Sometimes we have to just stop and just reflect on what's given to us in this world, and what can be easily taken. And I myself, I know what's taken from me right now haunts me every day at work. Every day that I'm home, I can't smile I can't enjoy life without remembering, man, Kalief it's sort of a guilt thing where it's kind of upsetting to smile now. So it's not something easy for me to deal with. My mother, this is our youngest brother who's been taken, so it's effective on her, but it's effective on everyone that knew him. There's a lot of people from BCC that spoke about my brother, and the things that they said, it's like, man, it's amazing that my brother actually touched people at his age. Other people was affected by Kalief, and it's amazing just to hear like the stories that they can tell that gives me light about my brother on a different side. So I appreciate everyone coming, and I thank you for all that all the thought that you put into my brother, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dion. I'm gonna try to keep it positive because it's a lot. I don't want to focus on the negatives when it comes to my brother. I want to talk about all the positive things that he's done and everything that he's accomplished. And one of the accomplishments that he did was show the world who he is. And it's understanding that it's hard to understand that he's not here. But one thing he told me was that he doesn't feel loved. and when he's gone, he would never feel loved. No one would ever remember him, or no one's going to love him. But from the amount of support that I received on Instagram, and just the thought of everybody being here, you know, to pay tribute, to pay support, and to pay their respects to someone they didn't know but was touched by his story, or touched by what was said, and connected to it in a way that affected them deeply, or maybe they knew a family member, or a cousin, brother, sister, uncle, friend who may be going through the same things. And this is such a big eye-opener, so I want to thank you, Loki, because this is not something small, like my brother said. This is actually very big, and what you did was put his story, his success on the map, and it opens doors for everybody else who's feeling the pain. And what I want to tell everybody is, if you have that family member, or you have that brother or sister or uncle that is going through something traumatic in their life, don't wait to the very end to stand up. Stand up now and show that you care. Show them that you're there. Bring them to bring them to a facility that can help them if you can't. Talk to them, coach them through it. Just let them know that you're there and you're by his side, because that's one thing I regret about my brother, is that I was not there 100% when he really needed it the most. And looking at this mirror, it just brings so much memories to me, because this is actually how he was. The person that he was a very positive person. Someone who went through so much traumatic issues and so much pain was able to go to college and get a 3.5 GPA. And it's hard to understand that someone who went through so much can actually still go to school and focus enough just to pay attention to school and get their life back on track. It's one thing I want to remember, is that my brother actually stood up for something. He was a strong individual who actually stood up for rights, and he fought knowing that he wanted to prove his innocence, and that's exactly what he did. He proved his innocence, and it's tragic that he had to take his life for everybody else to come into play and everybody else to see his story. But one thing I know is that he's smiling down at everybody, and I'm most appreciative of everybody who has reached out to me, and of course you will be. Thank you so much for everything, and thank you so much for everybody being here. Your support means so much to me and my family. It's unreal. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. Come on.
I'm sorry, people. Not to hold anybody up, but realistically, once I take a different stance on the city and how we look at things, and there's associations that I'm affiliated with that. before this happened to my brother, I was a part of an association, Y Accountability, which holds accountability to the police departments and correctional officers, mostly focused on the police department, in which we have precincts in every community. Those precincts are funded by our tax dollars, whatever. There's meetings that we can go to for the once a month to keep statistical watch on the police and we track how they have their dealings with the community. They're supposed to protect and serve. They're supposed to serve us with a unbiased hand, but unfortunately that doesn't happen. But if you can check out Y Accountability, or just inquire about when these meetings are at these precincts, you guys actually make a difference. Because if there's something happening in your community, just like my brother Dion said, do not wait. Do not wait for it to happen to your family. I feel very much at guilt because I go to these meetings. I speak. I chime in. I actually do cop watch. And the bad thing is, when this happened to Kalief, it was like, okay, he's out now, he's home. Like, we're gonna deal with this, but okay, we could breathe now. But there's not a chance to breathe in here. It didn't just happen to Kalief. It didn't just happen to Michael Brown. It didn't just happen to the many countless others. So take some time, like my brother said, like, take some time to just, if you can be here today, we really appreciate it. We thank you. But if you can be here today, then you can also find maybe 5 minutes to inquire about what's going on in your community to the people that all of us is going to be affected by. Because it's more often than not that those that's not in power is going to be the victim. Just it happens. And there's associations there for us to be active in our community. And the one thing, like I said, I don't want to hold it up, but look into the meetings that you can go to about from the department of the police departments, because you have a say in your community. Thank you. I'm sorry. Come on. No.
That's it. I guess I'll begin. So, when I first met Kalief, and he started telling me his story 2 years ago, just about, as an attorney, I was utterly shocked. Shocked that this young man went through this criminal justice system, a system of injustice, and all these horrific things happened to him. A criminal justice system that I was part of as a defense attorney, as a civil rights attorney. It was unfathomable. And as a human being, I was utterly saddened because there was this kid in front of me. He was 20 years old, but he was really still just a kid, a teenager. And he was completely broken. His pain, his resentment, his anger, it was palpable. He was just out of jail. But I got to know Kalief, and he was a shy, humble kid. And when you got to know him, he would open up to you. He had a great smile, it was infectious, and he was really good at laughing. And he liked talking. It was cathartic to him. Anybody that knows him knows that. And in fact, we talked a lot. Most of the time, not even about his case. We just talked. And I always tried to impart the message, knowing what he went through, that life was worth living, no matter what adversity you had gone through or were going through at the time. Because I always feared that this day would come. And unfortunately, it did. But that's why we talked. That's why we talked. But we didn't really talk about his case. You know, he wasn't really comfortable discussing that. But he did. He told his story because he knew the import, the significance of what he had endured. And he knew that he needed to get that story out there so that other young men and women wouldn't have to go through the same thing, that maybe he could provoke some change. That was his message. And now that's his legacy. And we've seen the change happen. Since October, when Jennifer Gonneman brought this story to light in the New Yorker magazine, the city's already created reforms. End of solitary confinement. Speedy trial laws have been proposed. Bail reform just occurred last week. A whole overhaul at Rikers Island. Kalief was the face, the impetus of all those reforms. And of course, a scholarship was started at Bronx Community College in his name. And again, we're here at this mural that an artist who I've never heard of created this beautiful Lopi, beautiful piece. And we're here talking about Kalief. And I think it's important. I know it's important, it's significant, and I think you can tell by hearing from Kalief's family that it's provided them some solace, some semblance of justice.
I just wanted to say one thing. It's kind of like the elephant in the room that no one seems to be mentioning is racism. And what I want to say is that white kids who are brought in by the law often only get off with like community service, and that like kids of color are put into adult prisons. Like, just think about that. And the way that it is in our society right now, there's like a school to prison pipeline. I mean, they take kids in school and they punish them disproportionately for things that white kids do. They expel them, they stigmatize them with the belief that they're thugs, they're criminals, and then it creates them to behave in more of the way. It's sort of like self-fulfilling prophecy if you read Freud or whatever. White people have a responsibility to stand up and say this is wrong and do the work that it takes. You can't just sit back and be like, yeah, you know, we're right on our white privilege, and just be like, you know, well, at least it's not me or whatever.
Those of you who don't know, I'm Kamal, Kalief's older brother. And as living in a house with him, I've grown attached to him. Not only was he my brother, he was my best friend. He was my competition. He was a lot of things to me. He thought he was way smarter than me, which at one point he was, and he still is. But ever since he left, it's like I feel empty. Like my mother don't understand me some of the times. It's like certain stuff I can't tell her. I used to tell him, and he'll understand me, and I used to understand him. So it's like when he left, it's like he left a hole in my heart. And that's just pretty much it. That's all I wanted to say. So.
Ready? Anita Browder.
Hi, my son kept urging me to come up here, so I'm kind of nervous, but Kalief.
I'd like you singing.
Kalief was my youngest out of 7, and he liked to play pranks. You know, he was funny. He'd come in with this grin and this smile. And I still remember him when he was little, running around with Kamal and just getting into everything. And then it took that one night for him to come home from a party. And a person just said, "That's him, he robbed me." And the man couldn't even get it straight. First he said he got robbed that night, then it was last week, and it was a week and a half ago. And then another cop came up and said, "Oh, the man said you robbed him 2 weeks ago." So with that discrepancy, why would you even arrest him and maybe talk to him or whatever? Anyway, they arrested him. He spent 3 years. Now that's 3 years my baby was locked up. He waited for a trial. He wanted a speedy trial, but it didn't happen. And every time you turn around, the prosecution, "Oh, we need another couple of weeks. We're not ready. They weren't ready for 3 years. Until finally, the judge was very upset with Kalief because he would not take a plea. But my son stood his ground. And even though he went through hell in that place, he was not going to confess to something he didn't do. That was his principal right. And he stood up for it. Now, I went to one gathering, and even a judge spoke, saying that he wouldn't have been able to do what Kalief did. He said Kalief was a better man than him because he would have caved in just so he could go home. But Kalief wouldn't do it. He stood his ground, and I'm so proud of him for doing that. I give anything for my son to be here now, but unfortunately, what he endured at Rikers just would not let go. And he couldn't, no matter how he tried to fit in and to do things. And I was so proud when he got his GED and he went to college. But Rikers just had that grip, a strong grip. For 2 years in solitary confinement. When my son first came home, he was so used to being in 4 walls. That's all he used to do, walk the 4 corners of the driveway. For months, he did that because it was like he was conditioned. He went through a lot. He tried to change, he tried to be happy. His favorite thing was watching Naruto, some Japanese anime cartoon, I don't know. But he had fun. And I used to love to watch him, you know, laying on the couch and, "Mom, what's for dinner?" You know, he was always hungry, always hungry. Gotta keep my weight up, Mom. But like I said, it was just too much to bear. And I'm glad that they're making changes, changing the law so that other kids won't have to go through it and other mothers won't have to bury their sons because Rikers had a part in his death. The system had a part in his death. And he just couldn't bear it. But I have good memories You know, I have sweet memories. And thank you so much for this mural. It is beautiful. It's just like him, just like him. As if you just took a picture of him standing there. Thank you so much. And I hope I didn't bore you or say bad things, but I just had to get it out.
Just wanted to chime in on things that we can do, things that we may not know that we can do because we don't have the facilities or the knowledge that's not given to us freely or willingly. Sometimes we hear about things that happen in the city that we live in, and our brothers and sisters live in, and we don't know what to do, and we leave our lives in the hands of attorneys or even worse. But the things that we can do, while your brother, sister, brother, father, any relative, family, friend that you know, that you love, that you care for, or even if you want to do a kind thing and care for someone else that you don't know, and just take some of your time and give some kind of empathy towards someone else. The things that you can do is calling that precinct. Make a call to that precinct. If my brother is arrested, the first thing I'm doing, besides calling Paul, is calling that precinct and letting them know that I know my brother's in that cell. I know you have my family member, my loved one, because I know he was arrested. They are allowed to make a phone call. Sometimes you may not even know, but once you find out, you have to be constantly on them because they'll act like they forgot about you. They'll act like you're not there. So you have to be, even if it's a traffic violation. I've gotten stopped just yesterday. I got stopped, this is my 6th time this year. I got stopped and arrested, brought to a precinct because my license or something is wrong with my license. And then they find out it's not, so then it's like, oh, I just missed a day of work and I have to explain to my job 5 times this year alone why I'm not at work. But if you have a family member that's there, you call and constantly call once an hour, what's going on? I need to know where's my brother, or my family member, or somebody that I know that's in there that you're not giving the right or proper justice. We're considered innocent until proven guilty, not the other way around. Once they're arrested, your neighbors is going to see you getting arrested, and you might automatically think, man, I wonder what he did. You should be thinking, unless it's, not everyone's innocent, but you should be thinking, I wonder what's going to happen to that person. Because if I don't know if there's any brothers and sisters in here or any wives and husbands in here, but if your husband gets taken and he can't go to work the next day, or he can't be, and your neighbors and everything, when he or she comes out the next day or whatever and is back home, your neighbors was the ones that was spreading rumors and saying, man, I knew he was a bad person, or I knew he was up to no good. We have to stop looking at each other like that. We're neighbors in the same city. I don't know any one of you by face except for my family and my lawyer, but I do know that you live in the city with me. Once a month, I go to Rikers with the community church that I go to, and we take time to at least pray for the inmates there, or to sit there and listen to them. But that's a part of empathy. New York has forgotten what it feels like to love each other. We've forgotten what it feels like to know that I don't know you from a hole in the wall, but you are a human being. So when we take time to listen to other people, we understand that you're going through the same things that I'm going through. So why can't I love you the same way? No matter how busy you are with your life, there's still 5 minutes in your day that you can think about someone else.
I can relate to what your family's going through. My question to you would be, has that changed your perception about the individuals that has wronged your brother? Individuals in that capacity, has changed your perception of them or your image of them, and were you able to forgive them?
I always wanted to be a cop. I grew up watching Westerns with my father. Always wanted to be a cop. Unfortunately, I was 16 when I got my license. I had a sports car, so that right there threw it out the window. One thing, I spoke to some people, and I was told, when you become a cop, you have to change. I was told you have to shoot first, ask questions later. Don't agree with that. I'm not saying who told me, this is just what I was told. And I was also told that you can't be around certain people. You have to change your lifestyle. So that right there, it got me to the point where I started thinking twice about the law system now. Now, the situation I have with my brother, we're taught that we should forgive. We should forget. You can forgive, but you'll never forget. We're taught that you should turn the other cheek. We only have two cheeks. So, you really shouldn't hate anybody, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I hate these people. I'm not gonna lie to you. If I knew who it was and it was in front of me, I can't say what I want to say because my kids are here. But then next thing, I might have to call Christia to fight for me. What was done to my brother and what was done to a lot of people, including Brian, is unforgivable. Now, Miss Lopi, I said your name right? Ms. Lopi brought up a good point when she spoke about the elephant in the room. As much as people would like to think that it's gone, it's not gone. And it's still here, and it's going to still be here. And like Brian said, like my brother said, like Christia said, the only way that's going to change is by people speaking up. Earlier this morning, I had a conversation with my mother, and I was comparing Kalief to Rosa Parks. She said, no, I'm not getting up. My brother said, no, I'm not taking the plea. So, I hope I answered your question. Did I?
Yeah, you did.
Now, everybody's talking about negative stuff about Kalief, so I want to bring up some good memories about Kalief. One I remember, when he was a little baby, he got a hold of the powder, the baby powder. And he had the baby powder all over him. And he would just sit on the floor. All you saw was all white, sitting in his diaper. Right, Bob? My mother used to watch a kid named Marcus. And Kalief, how old was Kalief? 12? Kalief was about 12. The little baby was like 2-3 years old. And I trained him. Every single time I said, who did it? Kalief did it. Kalief would be in school, and I would take his lollipop, and he'll go tell my mother. And then my mother would say, who did it? Kalief. Kalief, I mentioned earlier, he liked to play sports, but he sucked at it. I'm better than you. I remember one time he played basketball with me, and I don't know if y'all know what the funky chicken dance is. Yes. That's how he got, and he started dribbling the ball. The way he shot the ball, you would have thought maybe, what's that thing with the Olympics where they hold the ball like this? And they gotta, that's how he shot the ball. It went over the backboard. Kalief used to love playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Anybody that doesn't know, it's a card game. He sucked at that too. But that didn't stop him. He loved playing it. And another thing people don't know about Kalief, Kalief was very intelligent. Kalief's GPA was 3.56. 7? Oh, 3.57. Much higher than mine, which was just in the 2s. But Kalief used to stay at school just to study. Study. He took the GED without taking a class or anything. He just said, "Ma, I'm gonna go take the GED." Went in the GED, took the test, passed it. No problem, no schooling, no nothing. He was supposed to start tutoring English before this stuff happened. When my brother came out, and it was Christmas time, he didn't know what to get his niece and nephew. So what he did is, he went to Toys R Us, he told the lady, "What do I get for a 3-year-old? What do I get for a 1-year-old?" She put him in the aisles, all he did was this. Just take the stuff, just put it in the shopping cart. When it came time to open the gifts, my son was so excited, he just started dancing. And we had to help him figure out which toy to open up first. Kalief was a good person, and he just turned 22. And I believe a lot of people, and I told my mother this morning, we were born, we try to figure out why we're here. I believe the reason why Kalief came was to do exactly what's happening now. It's unfortunate that he had to go through all that nonsense that he went through, but look at all the changes that he's making, and Kalief is my hero. When I grow up, I want to be just like him.